I want to mention a few more dates. January 20th marked the 15th anniversary of the passing of the Yiddish poet Avram Sutzkever. On the same day, 15 years later, his daughter, Rina Calderon Sutzkever, passed away. Dear Hadas, please accept our deepest condolences on the loss of your beloved mother. Now I would like us all to honor her memory, as well as the memory of all victims of the Holocaust, with a minute of silence. In the movie we just saw, we heard the poem Unter deine weiße Stern. Now I would like us to hear full version of this poem in Yiddish, English and Lithuanian.
Unter deine weiße Stern, streck zu mir dein weiße Hand. Meine Wörter seien Tränen, fiel in Ruhe in dein Hand. Seh es dunkel, seh es winkel, in mein Keller dicken Blink. Und ich hab gar nicht kein Winkel, sie zu schenken dir zurück. Und ich will doch Gott getreuer, dir vertrauen mein Vermögen, weil es mahnt in mir Feier und in der Feier meine Tage. Nur in Kellern und Löcher weint die mörderische Ruhe, läuft in Hecher über Dächer und ich such, wo bist du, wo? Nehmen Jogen mich Mischune, treffen Häufen mit Geweih. Häng ich a geblätzte Strune und ich sing zu dir so, unter deine weiße Stern. Streck zu mir dein weiße Hand, meine Wörter, seinen Tränen, will in Ruhe in dein Hand.
Under your white starry heaven, offer me your pale white hand. All my words are flowing teardrops. I would place them in your hand. Gone the luster from their brightness, seen through morbid cellar view, and I no longer have my own space to reflect them back to you. My devoted God, I offer everything that I possess, as the fire that I suffer fills each fiery day I pass. Only in the holes and cellars, with deadly rest my days I share, I run higher over spires, searching where are you, oh where? I am chased by phantom beings, stairs and courtyards goad me to. There I hang a broken bowstring, and I sing once more to you. Under your white starry heaven, offer me your pale white hand. All my words are flowing teardrops. I would place them in your hand.
Visiškas variantas in Lithuanian. Po žvaigždėjom baltosiom tavo, baltą ranką man ištiesk. Žodžiai ašaromis sruva, ieško tavyje rimties. Temsta, gesta to švieselės, ties manąją slėptuve. Nežinau aš kampo, kelio, kaip nusiųsti jas pas tave. Ką turiu, dievuli mielas, patikėt tau noriu aš. Dega jau kraštelis sielos, uždega manas dienas. Rūsiuose, urvuos tik bėdos, pavojinga ramuma. Virš stogų, dangun aš bėgau, vis tavęs ieškodamas. Laiptai įkandin nurūko, užkaukė kiemai seni. Kybau, kaip styga sutrūkus, skamba tau daina manį. Po žvaigždėm, baltosiom tavo, baltą ranką man ištiesk. Žodžiai ašaromis srūva, ieško tavyje rimties.
This poem was written here in 1942 in the theater, actually now it's the Lela Theater. We've just been there in the Lela Theater. It was written and was sang there the first time because they were thinking of what kind of poems, what kind of theater, what kind of concerts would you bring to audience that just lost everything? So which theater is that? Which content would you put in to bring to the audience in order for them to feel the healing beauty and not the reality? To have healing beauty in order to give them strength to live. So what would you bring to them? And this was one of the songs, one of the poems that he wrote, and it was composed by Avram Brudno, but he died here, you know.
Yeah, it's a well-known song from Vilna Ghetto.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's known also in Israel, and it's known throughout the world because it had wings during the war, and people sang it, and it gave them strength because it expressed what people wanted to say or to shout and didn't have the ability, but this poem gave the opportunity to expose their feelings.
So first of all, Hadass, I would like to welcome you in Vilnius.
Thank you. It's not my first time.
And yeah, we know, but it's not your first time. But
and
I
it's
guess
not my first time also here.
Yeah, in the library.
Yes, yes.
So welcome back.
Thank you, Zilvinas. And I want to also, I heard that he passed away.
Yeah.
And he was a wonderful, wonderful man. And I met him. He followed me to the airport. And I didn't know what this guy wanted from me.
He didn't want to let you go.
I didn't know. Yes, I said, you're Jewish? He said, no. I said, what? So why? What books? Jewish books? I said, yes. I have this library, and I initiated it, and he told me the whole story, and I thought it was a wonderful story and a wonderful man with a dream, a dreamer, a big dreamer. And I immediately wanted to help him do whatever project that he wished for, and he wished a lot. He had a festival for Israeli films. He wanted. I don't know if he had the opportunity to do it, but he really wanted to do it. I wanted to help him, and we brought the first film that I did, Black Honey. People were in that screening. Lara, hi Lara. You were in the first screening that we did of Black Honey. The first film that we did, we had the screening here. So I want to say good words about a good soul like Zilvinas.
Thank you.
And I wish he was here. He meets now Sutzkever and my mother.
Yes. So it's not your first time here in Vilnius, and it's probably the third or the second.
Maybe, I think, 6.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because I was here with 60 Minutes, did an interview, and before I brought here the first show that I did called The Twins. Anybody saw that? It was 12 years ago. Also in the Lela Theater. It was also a story that my grandfather wrote about a girl called Hadass, which I discovered it. It's from the Griner Aquarium. And there's a short story called The Twins. And I found out a couple of years ago that there is a story that the hero the main character is Hadass, and I asked my grandfather, he was alive then. He died in 97. He died only, 15 years ago. And he said that she was his youth love. He loved her. And she had a twin sister. And that twin sister, called Grunia, she came after the war to Israel. She looked for him around the world just to let him know what had happened to her twin sister, his youth love, Hadass. And that is exactly how the story begins. And he wrote about it. But that was in Jaffa, a cafeteria in Jaffa, in the old Jaffa. He used to write there. And that woman found him, and she told him what had happened, and he wrote about it. And I brought it here. That was the first time that I came, and I brought all three of them. Because Sutzkever wasn't, after the war, he didn't come. He didn't have a chance to come here. But I brought him and Hadassah and Grunia back to Vilnius, and on that stage. I wanted it to be on that stage, and I sang that song, and Unter Deine Weiße Stern, so it was a closing circle to all of us, and opening a new one.
A new one.
Yes,
circle.
a new one, a new circle.
So about the circles, I wanted to ask you this.
And that is what you saw in the film.
Yeah.
I brought the crew to film it, and this is how we started to do the film.
Follow the diary of your grandfather, right?
Yes, the diary, this diary. I'm very surprised that you have it.
Yeah, from the Vilna
46. Ghetto. This is a very rare book, and you keep it better than me.
We try.
This is a very, very rare book. It's from 46, and it's in Yiddish.
Yeah.
It has also one in Hebrew. But when he came to Israel, 47, he translated it.
So you're back to Vilnius, and another
because of
the Israeli
embassy.
Team.
Thanks to them, it was a project for more than a year, I think.
Yes, we are very happy that you're here.
And we had a couple of events during that year, but we didn't know what would happen.
And with what feelings you came to Vilnius this time? Maybe you can share with us.
I'm always coming to Vilnius with a warm heart. And also my grandfather and my grandmother, always when they thought of Vilnius, they had tears in their eyes. Always. My grandfather and my grandmother, they always talked about Vilnius with a longing. Well, it's a mixture because they lost the family here, but Vilna was for them at that time, before the war, of course, was a world of fulfilling dreams and art and everything. They thought they had everything here, the families, but it's a mixture. If you read, there was a poema. Vilna. When he said Vilna in Yiddish, it's a will, but it's gone for me. The word itself. The word itself is a will, but it's gone. It's not here to grasp. It's not here. It's only the memory And the memory is also a mixture of many things.
Yeah.
So they didn't come back, but they still they still kept their good memories, because it's the memory of the mother, the father, the memory of their wedding, memory of life. And he said, there was a very nice poem that he says, I wish that somebody would bring me. It's in my words, of course. It's a poem, and it's a Sutzkever poem, so I'm not even trying to translate. But please bring me a little snow from Vilna, so it will be a little bit warm here in Israel. Bring me some snow from Vilna, so I will feel a little bit warm in the warm Israel. So this is so precise. Mm-hmm. I need some from Vilnius, even if that's snow, that I will feel more warm. It will be more warm in my heart.
Yeah, wonderful. This winter we almost didn't have snow here in Vilnius, so we all have
it says on a Saturday
in our memory. Yeah, hopefully.
It says on Saturday.
Hopefully, yeah.
Maybe for me.
But true. Of course, we during winter time, Vilnius used to be a very snowy place. Yeah, but
I wanted to tell, because you saw the film and it looks like that the whole the family is drowning with stories of the Holocaust. And I am, as a young child, I used to talk to my grandfather, because I didn't know Yiddish. In Israel, it's different, because they came to Israel and immediately they want to have babies, because they didn't have anything. So they make babies really fast. So my mother was born 45, and they don't talk, because they want to, bring the children to a clean environment and a clean memory and a clean, fresh start. So they don't talk to their children, and they grab them and keep the stories away.
Maybe we try to protect them from stories.
Protect.
Mm-hmm. And just to give them some new ground.
Yes, exactly what I'm saying. So it wasn't about talking to my mother, because my mother was she was in the house, she heard it, and but I wanted to know, and I wanted to know the stories. So that was a relationship built on the stories, not on the language of the Yiddish. But I used to interview him from a very young age, because that was the only way for me, because it wasn't the grandfather who would take me to the kindergarten. He wasn't the grandfather who put me on his lap and, had fun with me. No, he was Sutzkever, was an honorable man, and I'm sitting, beside him, and I'm asking really serious questions.
You're reading my questions, but it's actually I wanted to ask a question about your childhood, and on one hand, in general, grandparents are playing a very important role in their grandchildren's life. And I'm thinking that it's those grandchildren who having their grandparents, they are very happy, right? So how did you feel as a granddaughter of such a person? Because I think, Sutskever, it was a name. He was a
But
poet,
yes, but I didn't
and
know.
he was a fighter,
You're right,
and
but-
he was a man who was fighting for, Yiddish language in Israel, where everybody spoke Yiddish. So very strong personality. So how was it?
He was my only grandfather. I couldn't compare to another grandfather. He was my only grandfather, and I didn't know what's, about this the personality until people told me, how great is your grandfather. I remember that every time I met friends of his and in his salon, many honorable people came, and I remember that the mayor, it was a meeting after he won the Israeli prize, and we were in the living room, and I sat there. It was the first time and the only time that I sat on one of his legs. Never happened. Never. And he brought me on his, on his lap, and I was between Lahat. Lahat was the mayor, and Artzi, and many honorable people that were around him. And then somebody asked me, how do you call him? You call him grandpa, or how do you call him, grandpa, or? And I knew that I call him Abrache. I knew. I call him Abrache. He wasn't grandpa. He was Abrache. That this is how he wanted me to call him. It was very clear that we were going to have dinner or lunch at Abrache and Grandma Frida. Grandma Frida, but Abrache. And he asked me that, and I thought that if I would say Abrache, it wouldn't be, appropriate, because this is grandpa. So I lied. I lied. I was 6 or 7. I lied. I said I call him grandpa, and I thought I'm doing him, a favor. I'm not, you are my grandpa. And then he stopped me and he said, "Lo nachon, it's not true." In front of everybody. I said, "What? What? Now you're exposing me to be a liar?" He says, "Lo nachon," in front of everybody. And that was my first lesson, not to ever lie. Not in front of him, but not to not to ever lie. But yes, he was a very honorable man. I don't remember me, playing around with him no, I'm interviewing him, all the time. But I believe that somehow he prepared me to the world that I'm doing now in my life, to do the 2 films, to do the show, even to run the Jewish theater. I think it's all a mixture of somehow building me and my personality and my role in life to be what I'm doing now. So it contains, everything. Me being interested in the stories, and I lived through the stories. But also I want you to know that even if, he's a very difficult man, he was a difficult man, but he also had a wonderful humor. And if you read, and I'm sure that you read his poems, you will see that there is no sign of the role of an artist, as he said, as he says, is to bring healing beauty to the world in order to give strength to live. So the poems that you read give you strength, give you healing beauty. You would not see their blood or even the word Nazi. You would not find a poem with that word. You will hear the poems that give you strength to live, and the main reason that I'm now, after 6 days that my mother passed away, that I'm like this, because I keep in me the poem that he wrote just after the murder of his mother. And in that poem that called Ima, his mother is coming to him and saying to him, child, don't be in grief. It's a sin. Because if you are here, then I'm here with you. At the same way as the core of the plum contains within itself the tree and the nest and the bird and everything around. And this gives you healing beauty. Not to be in grief. Because the life is in with you and what you do with it. And that is exactly what I feel now, that I feel that my mother here is with me and my grandfather is here with me. And also after the 7th of October, I knew it was, as you know, it was tremendous earthquake in Israel in every meaning. But as for me and running a theater, I knew exactly what to do. Because of Sutzkever, I knew exactly what to do in such a chaos, in such a tragedy. Because he said, Baitog Alevaya, by Nacht Konzert. At the day, we had a funeral, but at the night, we will have a concert. To be here and there, that's ביום לוויה, בקונצרט בין ארבעים, להיות here and there, this is how it's from above. To be here and there. So we made theater acts to children in order to give them strength, and the fathers came and said, yes, thank you so much for bringing a smile to her face, because I have now time to grieve. When you keep her smiling, I have time to grieve, because I came from 5 funerals. It was at this 9 of October. So this is a way of living and looking at life, not as a sacrifice, but as a bringing, going through the dots of light, through the dots, and bring light wherever is dark. Just when it's dark, it is our world to bring light wherever we can. That's why he initiated the theater, in order to give strength to people. And Vilnius was so, Vilnius Ghetto was so unique in so many ways, that they lived the art, and it gave them the spirit and to live,
the strength to fight
and to live. And in the paper brigade, they fought not for, bread or an apple, but to bring books, to bring books and to keep them and for the Jewish people after the war. So the Jewish people would need his treasures to build himself again. They knew that. They weren't victims. They just knew we need that, those seeds, those roots for the Jewish spirit, for the Jewish people, in order for them to build themselves again. And this is exactly what happened. Those are the roots and those are our treasures, and you can see them in the library, in the National Library, and also in the National Library in Israel, and also in the Hebrew.
Some here.
Books that they rescued from the paper brigade. Many treasures.
Hadass, you grew up in Israel, and
Yes.
your grandfather, he wrote in Yiddish, as we all know.
Yes.
When was you introduced to his poetry? Because did he teach you? Did you know Yiddish, or you spoke in Hebrew with your grandfather?
We spoke in Hebrew.
In Hebrew.
In Israel, it's the tragedy of the Yiddish in a way, because a new country is built, and the prime minister is had to make a decision. So many people, so many countries, so many languages, and we have to build something that is, united. And it's a very hard decision to make. So, but it was made. We speak Hebrew and only Hebrew. It's a decision, and the for a poet, it's a tragedy. For a poet, because poetry to translate, it's almost impossible. And so many people were actors, or so they played in Hebrew instead of Yiddish. It was easy, even if they had an accent, it can, and also literature. It's easier than poetry. Poetry needs the rhymes, needs the rhythm of the language. So Sutzkever is the one that, and of course after he survived, because how he believed, survived because he kept on writing in Yiddish. Because the angel of poetry came to him when he was hiding in the Malina, and he said to him, as long as you would write, you would live. And if you bring me brilliant verses, I would, protect you with a flaming sword. And he wrote every day a poem, and he survived. And he survived. So he cannot come to Israel, and now forget that. He survived, and he didn't think about himself as a man who survived, because of himself. He saw himself as a deliverer of all the dead. All the dead. So he survived, and this is why he needs to be the voice of the ones that are not here. So that's what he did. All the stories, all the poems of people that he heard from, even Grunia and Hadassah. He brought them to life again in the stories, in the poetry. He brought Vilna to life. He brought the Yiddish to life. He brought the people that are not here to life again in his creation. And also in the, as you saw in the the Golden Agate that he edited. He edited for 48 years. So that was the Yiddish land of Sutzkever. The Yiddish land was born again in the Golden Agate. Everybody wrote there, all the Yiddish speakers, all the Yiddish writers, all the Yiddish creators, Manger and even Chagall and Bashevi Zinger, they wrote to that journal, to the Golden Agate. And it was the revival of the Yiddish language through that journal. You know that the story that he wrote a beautiful poema. He was in Mount Sinai. You know Sinai? You know that? Mount Sinai.
Sinai was Kalnas.
Sinai. Yeah. So he was there because he was in the army. He was a writer. And he was there and he wrote a beautiful poema called In Midbar Sinai. And he sent it to Ben Gurion. And Ben Gurion sent him back, oh, that is a brilliant poema, but why in Yiddish? Why not in Hebrew? Why not in Hebrew? And then he wrote him a poem. That poem called Yiddish. I hope you have it in translation. But in my translation, it says, oh, you want to tear out my tongue? My mother's tongue that was murdered because of her tongue? Okay, come. Try. Before you succeed, I will swallow my tongue. But from my throat would come this great roar that would shake the land that you are standing on. And that was his, answer to everybody that asked him not to write or speak in Yiddish. One time, but I need you to understand that I wasn't with a grandfather who wanted to tell me all the Shoah stories. No, I asked. It was me asking, and because of all the stories, every time I went to Europe, I went to these antique shops to find items from the war, because I needed to bring the stories to some kind of a reality, because it was stories and stories and stories. I went to this antique shop in Czechoslovakia, and I asked if he had items from the war, and he was like in shock, me asking. And then he answered yes. And he went to the attic, and he came down, shaking, but he came down, and then he opened his hand, and it was this yellow star he had there, talking about 25 years ago. And it was the first time that I ever saw a yellow star. And I was shaking. He was shaking. We was such, in a very strange situation. And I asked him, what you're selling it? It's for sale? And he didn't know what to answer. So he just said, yes, $200. I didn't buy. And I went back to Israel, and I came to my grandfather, and I said, Abrashe, I saw this yellow star in this antique shop. And this sales guy, he wanted $200 for it, but I didn't buy. And then Abrashe, see me shaking, and just looked at me with a little smile. And he said, $200? Really? That's funny, because I got it for free. And one time when I will just tell you this story so you know not just who's the writer and who's the poet and the partisan and the rescuer of the paper brigade of the of the treasures of the Jewish people, but him as a grandfather, I used to ask him many questions because I was interested. And it was the only way for me to connect to him, actually, because I didn't know Yiddish, but the stories I wanted to hear. And one time I heard this story that it was an akcja in the ghetto, and he managed to escape, and he went and got to that bridge, the Green Bridge. You have it, the Green Bridge. And he comes on and walked through the Green Bridge, and then in front of him comes this German soldier. What can you do? I mean, the Vilja is, left and right, and behind is the action, is the ghetto, in the ghetto, and in front of him this German soldier. What can you do? So I asked him, so what did you do? And then he said, I don't know exactly what happened then, but I just lifted my head, looked straight in his eyes, and I went very close to him, and I said to him, so good that I meet you. Very good. Just can you tell me where can I run where there are no Germans around? And like my grandfather said to me, and I filmed him, I did a psychological shock to him. A psychological shock, and this confused German just pointed his hand and he said, okay, go there. And he just let him pass. And that was the time that he said, okay, that was a miracle. Now I will ask for another miracle. I'm going to knock on the 13th house that I found. His 13 was a luck number for him. And he knocked on a door and opened there a woman with a white hair called Yanova Bartoshevich. And she looked at him, and he looked at her, and he couldn't even say a word. And she just said to him, and she brought him to the cell of where the potato was, and she hid him for 3 months. Yanova Bartoshevich, and after the war, he came back to say his gratitude, and also she was righteous
among the nations.
Thank you.
Yes, the story is also written in the latest book about Sutzkever. And it looks like, his life during the Holocaust was full of miracles.
Yes, that's right.
Full of miracles. And and maybe he is right. He was right that he signed an agreement with this angel of life,
Yes.
and maybe that's why he wrote so many poems during this period.
More than he wrote
after and before.
Life.
Yes. So I want to ask you about this, let's say, pre-war, during war, and after-war writing of him. In Israel, he is more known as a Vilna Ghetto poet, or an Yiddish poet writing in Israel.
Wow.
What is his,
It depends who you ask. Because people who read Yiddish, they will tell you that this is the great poet, not a Holocaust poet. But if you ask Israelis, they would know him because of Unter deine weiße Stern. So they would know that this is a poet that wrote in the ghetto because they don't know how to read all of his poems. Even though he was translated, all of his books were translated, not just to Hebrew, to many, many, many languages, even in Chinese. I was once, I remember with you that once I was there when he got a call from a teacher in China that she taught his poetry, and she asked him something, and he answered. He really answered. And Dori Manor, who is a poet in Israel, he was a known poet and a young poet, and he got to know. And he is a poet. I mean, I'm talking about more than 30 years ago. He came across a book of Sutkever in a reading books in a how would you translate it?
Circles.
Yarid Sfarim.
Book fair.
A book fair. Mm-hmm. He saw this. Wow! He saw this poetry, and he was sure that this is a poet that died in the ghetto. He was sure, and then he wrote an article about this poet because he was a journalist also in a journal. I don't remember which one. It was 30 years ago, and he wrote about this poet that he just discovered in this fair, and then he get a phone call
from the poet.
He said, "Shalom. Can Avraham Sutzkever medaber? It's Avram Sutzkever talking." And and Ori was this, the voice from the other side is calling him. He was sure that and this is a poet. He should have known. So I believe now, and that was, I think, my mission, is to bring the poetry and the story of Sutzkever to the Israelis, and not just to the Israeli, but it was meant to do it to the Israelis. And that's why in his Shiv'ah, you know what Shiv'ah is? In his Shiv'ah, I decided that this movie had to be done. And the only one who can do it is me, because I'm the only one who cares enough to do it for 15 years. So I fought for this movie, and after 10 years, I had twins, two films.
What will remain as the title of this movie?
And the poem.
And the poem. And the poem, right.
The poem.
Who
will remain and what will. Wer wird bleiben, was wird bleiben.
So the title of this movie is because of the poem?
Yes.
Or it has another?
No.
No.
No, it has, of course, because it's 3 generations.
Okay, but
who would remain, and you for me.
But it was like you wanted to dedicate it for you as a person, as a granddaughter, for your society and an Israeli society, or
it was my journey. It was my journey to know about my family and my roots, but it's a journey that everybody, I believe, goes through some way to find out what his root. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying that as a granddaughter that has so many blanks in the story, and I feel that we are not in my generation, especially in Israel, and then 3rd generation, nobody really finds the time to ask about the memory of the family. Everybody is in their own life. And one day, like I see now and everybody sees in the movie, one day they won't be here to ask. Mm-hmm. And we will not know the story. The story would be with blanks. So, and I'm a granddaughter that asked since I was 10 years old, and still I feel that I have so many things that I want to ask, and now I don't have who. Mm-hmm. So I'm going with this film through young people and inside the schools, and I try to show them that it's our responsibility. The circle of remembrance is now in our hand, mm-hmm. because we are the ones to tell it now. We're not just hearing, now we are telling. And if we don't know what to tell, so the memory is going to change so many ways. And it's our it's
obligation.
My generation, it's our obligation, and it's our duty now to bring the candle of remembrance to our children. And if we don't know what to tell, then it would change in so many ways.
True.
Yes, everything is changing, and that's what I said when I started this film. I knew that it's changing, and my generation was, you know, I say generally, but I felt that I'm alone. I was alone in digging and in trying to wake up everybody to ask, to know. Because now we are the front. Mm-hmm. We are the front.
Yeah.
And if we wouldn't be so precise and very clear in what to know and what we know and what to deliver, then we're not doing our duty. As I believe as Jewish people. Mm-hmm. They fought to rescue books. We need to protect that.
And we need
the story,
to read
the roots.
Yeah. Now I would like to open the floor to the audience. Maybe you have some questions to Hadass.
Yes, please, don't be shy.
Say a few words about your grandmother. I think she was a very
wow, my grandmother.
Life.
It's so funny that my mother in Black Honey, everybody was talking about Sutzkever and the poet and the Sutzkever, and then they coming to my mother and she said, yeah, I miss him, but I miss my mother more. Because she was this hero that without her he wouldn't survive. Mm. And without her, I mean, she was, meter v'chetzi, how would you say that? Very, very short, and he was 2 heads above her, but she carried him when his boots, were stuck because of the cold and he couldn't walk. She was the one. And when he was in Nova Bertucevich and she didn't know, and the rumor was that he was caught by the Gestapo, this little woman managed to come to that Gestapo guy and go with him all to the prison, through all of the cells. And the next picture that you would see, them calling Sutzkever, 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 through all of the cells. And she comes to the last cell and she sees the Sutzkever. Sutzkever is not there. Her husband is not there. But instead of going, she sees a man from the ghetto. She knew him. He was beaten and he was wounded. And she said to the guard, she said to the Gestapo man, "This is Sutzkever, my husband." And she rescued him from that prison. And afterwards they ran together to the forest. That man, I don't remember his name, but I know that he didn't survive. But she at least rescued him not to die, at that prison. She was a great, great, great woman with such a big heart, my grandmother. And she was also a poet. Mm. Yes, I have her diary, and Lara maybe will help me translate it.
Mm. Interesting.
Yes.
Any more questions? No? It's late, so I would like...
It's a long evening for you.
Not so much a question, just a note. I don't know if you have time to learn that already, but the memoir from Vilnius Ghetto was just recently translated into Lithuanian. Did you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, because I thought so, because somebody told me that will inform you about that. So
yes, he had for permission, and I trusted him that he's going to do a good work.
Yes, but it's out already. So and what I wanted to say is that nobody knew if the book will be successful, if anybody will be interested in it, but it is. We have that interest and we record that interest.
This book, right?
This one. There will be also another talk on the book. Unfortunately, not at the time that you will be, but the translator to English will come. And what I'm saying is that you brought that story of Sutzkever to Vilnius, but the story continues on its, as you say, on its own wings.
Yes, it's right. Yes, thank you.
So I would like to thank Hadas for being here with us today, even if you just arrived actually to Vilnius this afternoon. So thank you very much for your dedication.
Yes, thank you.
I also would like to thank Israeli Embassy for the idea to organize this event. Thanks a lot. And thanks to all of you who came this evening so late to be here with us. And this evening I would like to end with another poem of Avram Sutzkever. And I found this poem in a recently published book of Mindaugas Kvietkauskas. He is a poet, he is a well-known translator from Yiddish to Lithuanian.
He was the Minister of Culture.
He was a Minister of Culture, and now he's a Dean of Faculty of Philology at Vilnius University.
Wow.
So maybe I would ask you, Dita, again to help me to read it in English. So
a cultural man in a cultural... That is new for me.
Yes.
And thus it was, when I returned after the liberation to my hiding place between God and Satan. Through the tin vaulting I once pierced with a nail, felt the same oblique shine, the same heavenly needle of light, in whose grace I needled the letters into the silver parchment of my body for all eternity. Let me unravel the secret, liberated when I returned to my hiding place in the same needle shine I saw, quivering in the ray of dust, a familiar figure. I could swear I it was, and am, and shall remain, strung on a string of dust with the same needle.
Šviesos adata. O buvo taip, kai aš vėliau, išgelbėtas jau, sugrįžau į tą slėptuvę, kurioje tūnojau tarp Dievo ir Šėtono. Išvydau krentant įstrižai pro plono jos skardinį stogą, kurį tada buvau praduręs vinimi. tą patį spindulį, tą pačią dangaus šviesumo adatą, kurios malonėje tatuiravau raides ant sidabrinio savo kūno pergamento, kad liktų amžiams. Dabar atskleisiu paslaptį. Tada, kai aš vėliau, išgelbėtas jau, sugrįžau slėptuven, pakildamas iš dulkių, sušmežavo toje pačioje adatšviesiai pažįstamas pavidalas. Galiu prisiekti, ten aš buvau ir tebesu ir liksiu, užvertas visada ant dulkių siūlo, tos šviesos adatos. So, why this poem? I think he will, it's very new. He will remain, and we will make sure that he will remain. So thanks a lot for keeping the legacy of Avram Sutzkever. And thank you for being here with us in Vilnius.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. Thank you.